Hey there, welcome back to the podcast. Or I guess I should say for newbies, welcome to the podcast. We have had so many new listeners over the past 30 days. We've actually had 400 more downloads on our podcast over the past 30 days than we have in previous months. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for sharing our podcast with people in your circles. This is so wonderful. You're helping us to really spread the message to parents and grandparents about how to really strengthen your marriage and unify your family. This is such an important thing in society, right? The family is the backbone of our culture. And if the family unit is breaking down, so is our culture. So, our mission here at Families of Character is really to save kids from the pain of divorce and to help married couples who are raising kids to strengthen their marriage relationship, reorder the priorities in their lives, because oftentimes we put kids before our spouse, before our faith life, and everything just sort of gets flipped on its head. So we really want to help you to reprioritize and be intentional about your faith, your married life, and raising your kids in that order. So thank you for sharing our message far and wide in the ways that you do by texting it to people, forwarding on our Tuesday morning emails that include the link to our podcast. You are doing all the things, and it's making a huge difference for the Families of Character community and people throughout the world. We have people listening in like 7 different countries. I think we're up to like 40 out of the 50 states. So this is really exciting, and it's because of you. So thank you, and know that you have a big place in our hearts here at Families of Character for just helping us to get the message out. Listen, I am so glad you're here today, okay? Especially because this episode I'm about to share with you is very near and dear to my heart. And you know, if you've been listening for a long time, or even for a few episodes, that I'm all about sharing my own personal testimony. It's all about being vulnerable and authentic and just showing you what's going on inside the house over here at Team Langdon in Denver, Colorado. Okay. So I want to share with you a little bit today about something that has radically changed the way I approach both my marriage and my family life. And that is prioritizing my faith. Now, you're going to be like, oh, Jordan, I got to hang up right now. I don't have time for that. Like, what are you talking about? I'm raising kids. I'm doing, diapers, dinner, dishes. I ain't got time to add one more thing. Tune in. Do not press pause or stop on this episode. It's going to be much easier than you expect, and the benefits are going to ripple out for years. So tune in here, okay? I'm going to admit right off the bat, it was not always easy for me to make time for my spiritual life. And maybe there's some guilt or even some shame around that, but I'll just be real. When my kids were young, I remember back then feeling like I was already stretched thin and barely getting enough sleep. You know, when you've got toddlers, like 1-year-old, a 4-year-old, and then a 8-year-old or 9-year-old, like you're running at all times of the day and night. You're feeling like two ships passing the night with your spouse. It's hard, right? And at that time of my life, I remember the thought of waking up even 15 minutes earlier than I was already getting up, or 15 minutes, before my kids woke up, felt like an impossible task. But I want to share with you how that small, seemingly insignificant adjustment in my day ended up filling me up in ways I didn't even realize I needed. So, the early struggle, right? For those of you who are parents, especially if you've got little ones running around, I'm sure that you can relate to this. When you're sleep deprived, there's nothing worse than the idea of setting the alarm clock earlier than necessary. I myself was constantly in survival mode, trying to get a little extra sleep or squeezing in some me time after the kids went to bed, which usually didn't happen either because, well, life, right? But something shifted for me when I realized that I could not keep pouring from this empty cup of mine. I needed a source of strength that wasn't just physical sleep or even a good workout. I needed something more, something deeper, something spiritual. So, what I did was I just took a leap of faith. Okay, pun intended. I decided to set my alarm just 15 minutes earlier. I figured I could try journaling or maybe a short devotional, something that would sort of like center me on the day ahead. What I had been doing is getting up to the cry of my baby or, rocketing out of bed because I had hit the snooze button. And then the way I was starting my day was by whatever crisis had come up, in the early hours of the morning. And so there was zero like runway for me to have a decent takeoff to my day because what I had been doing was just kind of starting my morning in a reactive stance, right? Like, oh, somebody's crying. Oh, somebody needs their diaper change. Oh, somebody had a nightmare. Oh, and then I would, once you get the ball rolling, you get your coffee and you're putting out fires, you just never return back to that. Okay. So, what I did by setting my alarm 15 minutes earlier than I usually get up is I decided to take control of my day. I decided that something small by doing like a devotional could actually become my lifeline. Now, let's be real. I didn't feel like right when I started doing this that I was filling up the first few days or even weeks of this new habit. It was more like I had made the commitment and I decided I was going to buckle down and do it for like 30 days, whether it felt right or not, whether I liked it or not, or whether, I could feel the benefit right away. There was a part of me during that first, week to 3 weeks that still wanted to hit the snooze button. But I tell you, as I kept going, I began to notice something. I began to notice that my soul, deep down inside, sort of that pit of your stomach, felt more at peace. And that my mind was actually more focused during my day. And my heart was actually more connected to this bigger picture of what my life was all about. I wasn't just going through the motions anymore and reacting to my day. I was starting my day centered on what really mattered: my faith, my marriage, and my family. And I got to tell you, the ripple effect it had on my marriage was unbelievable. And you know what? That change in my spiritual routine didn't just affect me and my husband in our marriage, it helped our children as well. When I started making time, carving out that 15 minutes in the morning, first thing for my faith, it filled me with a sense of purpose and clarity that allowed me to show up better for my husband, first and foremost, and then for my kids. Those days when the stress of the kids, work, and just like life in general makes you feel like you're just on the edge? Well, before I'd let that frustration out on really the person closest to me, right? My husband, Josh. But when I intentionally filled myself up with, spiritually, first thing in the morning, I was able to show up in my marriage with more patience, understanding, and grace. And guess what? I found myself admitting my wrongs and apologizing more than I ever had in my marriage. It was quite the transformation. And instead of reacting, I was responding in a way that reflected the love and the kindness that I had just myself received in my devotional time. So I really want to underscore that by starting my day with a daily devotional, and I personally prefer a book called Jesus Calling. It's a one-page, calendar devotional where whatever date it is, you open to that page and there's a scripture verse and a sweet little message where Jesus is speaking to you specifically. And when I started using that devotional and really receiving that love from God, I was able to give that love to my family. Okay. And so uh, it was helped me just totally respond in a way that again reflected the love and kindness I'd received myself by taking that extra time to everyone else in my family. I know 15 minutes a day. You think, Jordan, really? Did it have that big of an effect? Yes. I wouldn't do a whole episode about it if it hadn't. So I want to give you some practical tips, right? You know how I'm always bringing the practical tips for how do we take this information and apply it to our lives today as busy parents. First of all, you're probably thinking, this is going to be really hard to make this happen. You're going to be thinking about all the reasons that it's not going to work for you. But I'm here to help with that, right? When I sign my emails, always in your corner, that's because I am. I really am always in your corner. If you believe that this information is not for you, if you believe that these tools won't work for you, if you believe that these habits won't work for you, well, the hard truth is they won't. But if you have that hope, if you've been tuning into our episodes and you're catching this vibe that, you know what, I can do some small things that will make a difference. And I am willing to sacrifice 15 minutes of sleep in the morning because I believe what Jordan is saying, what she has done in her own life has really made a difference. Then I've got the tips for you right here. Okay. And let me just tell you, there's no perfect formula. Nobody's got it perfect, right? Some days you're going to feel like you're nailing it, and other days you're feeling like I'm barely holding it together. But consistency, even in the smallest ways, is what's going to make a world of difference. So it's not about how great you're doing it or how poorly you're doing it. It's about just doing it when you're tired, doing it when you're angry, doing it when you are hungry, doing it when you're, just feeling like, oh yeah, I'm feeling so good. I'd rather do something else, right? That's also a time to go, but wait, that 15 minutes, that first 15 minutes of my day makes a difference. All right, so let's jump into it. Few tips to help you get started. Whether you're a mother or a father, you can do these, okay? Start small. Doesn't have to be an hour-long Bible study. Does not have to be an hour at the Adoration Chapel, right? Just start with 10 or 15 minutes. I told you that I began with journaling or just reading a verse or two. And then gradually, I found that I wanted more time. But for me and for most people, it all just starts with a few intentional minutes. All right. Another tip, incorporate prayer throughout your day. I remember one time during the 40 days leading up to Easter, I decided I was going to do this healthy eating plan, okay, Whole 30, right? Where you just eat whole foods for 30 or 40 days. And, you cut out sugar and coffee creamers and, all these indulgences. And then you just really eat natural whole foods. Well, every time during that 40 days that I would have a craving for something I wasn't supposed to have, I just said a little prayer. And it wasn't something, wrote. It was just a little conversation. Lord, thank you for healthy food. Thank you for helping me have the self-control, right? To keep this going. I prayed more during that 40 days than I've probably ever prayed in my life, right? Because I decided that every time I had a physical sensation for food, I was going to offer that up and just say a quick little statement of gratitude to God for something that He has given me in my life, right? So prayer throughout the day could be attaching it to something you do several times every day. One is brushing your teeth. When you're brushing your teeth in the morning and at night, if you just make it a habit to add prayer to brushing your teeth, that will be transformative. If every time you go into the restroom to relieve yourself, you say a little prayer right there on the throne, guess what? That's going to be transformational, right? We're not trying to add on a new habit to a totally different time of day. Let's work smarter, not harder. Let's just take what we're already doing a couple times of the day and incorporate prayer into that thing we're already doing. Habit stacking. There's a great book called Atomic Habits. I'd highly recommend it. It's a great read to just remind yourself we can start something new if we link it to something we already have a habit of doing. So, another great way, obviously, is when you eat. Anytime you eat food, just take a minute to connect with God, right? Say a quick prayer for your children or your spouse. And it can be 30 seconds, it can be 3 minutes, right? But incorporating prayer throughout your day is a great way to go back to the well and spiritually get fed, to fill up so you have something to pour out. Another great way is when you're driving your kids to school. There are so many great little prayer apps or reflections. We love the Hallow app. And specifically, we listen to Jeff Caven's daily reflection. The guy is a great storyteller. Our kids love the stories he tells, and he links it to the gospel message. What a great little way to spend your commute as you're going for errands or a run to school or to sports practice, is just putting something good on the radio in your car and just listening to it together. That can be more of a routine and a natural habit for you as a family as well. Here's another idea. If you have a spouse, if you're married, do a devotional together. Right off the bat in the morning, just suggest to your spouse, hey, let's do this 10-minute devotional together. One of us can read it out loud, and then we can have a quick little discussion about how it resonated with us, right? And just getting in the habit of, doing a cheers with your coffee mug and reading the devotional and sitting with it for a few minutes, right? Even if you just spend 5 minutes reading and discussing like a short devotional, it can bring you closer as a couple and create a united front in your marriage and family life. Isn't that so important? To be a united front, to be this sort of fortified bit of protection for your family because you're connected around and centered around your faith. Totally worth it. Okay. You could also make faith part of your family routine, right? Like before you go to bed at night, how about praying around the bed of your youngest child? I grew up doing this in my household and have fond memories of us kneeling around my little sister's bed every night. She was the first one we put to bed at night because she went to bed earliest. So we all just gathered around and said some family prayers together. And so when we had our kids, we thought, well, that's just what you do at night, right? That's how you tuck your kids into bed. Because we were shown and modeled that, we were able to start that with our own kids, and we still do it. And it's a precious time. And so if you are, wrestling with the idea of, well, how do I get prayer started? We never did that in my family. Everybody just kind of went to bed and you said goodnight, and there was no family prayer around the bed. Just keep it simple. Just decide that as a family, when the youngest one goes to bed, everybody's going to meet in that bedroom. Say a quick prayer of gratitude to God. Any special intentions you have, just don't worry about, being caught up in these rote prayers, but focus your efforts on just having a conversation with God, a natural conversation. Maybe eyes closed, right? If that's more comfortable for you, but just prayer of gratitude, a prayer of something that you would like help with, and then close it out with a little family hug, right? It could be that simple. So that routine for us has just brought a lot of peace to our home. It's helped our kids also, I believe, start the next day in a more positive way, right? How you go to bed at night really makes an impact on the mood and the vibe the next morning when your alarm clock goes off, right? So, another great way to include something positive in that nightly bedtime routine is just some family prayer. Okay. I want to talk about this in terms of like an analogy of maintaining your car, because this is something we all have to do, right? Or our vehicles break down. They don't fix themselves. I find myself telling my 18-year-old that, he moved out and he's living in Lincoln, Nebraska. And he's like, oh, my car did such and such. And I'm like, remember, dude, the cars don't fix themselves. If they're making a noise or stalling out, it's time for maintenance, right? It might be past due for maintenance, but you definitely have to check into it. So I want you to imagine your spiritual life is like a car. If you don't take time to maintain it, right? Checking the oil, filling up the gas, getting your tires rotated, it's going to break down eventually. And your marriage and family life are the same way. When you take time to fill up spiritually each day, you're making sure the engine is running and it's running smoothly. You're making sure that you have the energy, patience, and love to pour into your marriage and your children. Skipping out on that maintenance, whether it's through prayer, a devotional, or a quick quiet moment, may get you through the day, but eventually you're going to find yourself running on empty. If you're still not convinced that this habit is for you, I want to hit you with a few stats to back it up, okay? Remember, I've been a licensed clinical social worker for 20 years. I've been counseling parents, married couples, and statistics are real, depending on who does the study, but I like to find the good studies. So, according to a study done by the National Marriage Project, couples who pray together report higher levels of marital satisfaction, and over 70% of couples who make faith a priority in their relationship say they experience deeper emotional intimacy, better communication, which we could all use, and greater resilience during tough times. What is resilience? It's the ability to bounce back when something tough comes at you. And let me just tell you, it's not just your marriage, because according to research from Focus on the Family, families that practice regular spiritual activities together, praying at night before bedtime, Bible study together, worship, church service, they tend to have stronger bonds, better communication, and healthier family dynamics. Okay. These families are also better equipped to handle stress and challenges, which we know are inevitable in marriage and family life. Stress and challenges, folks, are part of our story. It is not something we should expect to be free from. It is something we have to accept. And so if we know that stress and challenges are coming, then we do what it takes to fortify the foundation of our marriage and our family life through our spiritual connection, through going back to that well of our faith that fills us up. When you prioritize your faith, you prioritize the foundation of your home. And I want to just mention this. I hear over the past 10, 15 years of helping couples, I've heard, especially with men, not sure why in particular this is with men, but they'll say, I don't have another spare minute. Like I'm blasting out the door. I'm trying to get to the office, like adding one more thing. It's not going to be worth it. If I can get to the office 15 minutes earlier, I can make 16 more, you know, sales calls, or I can, bump up my earning by $200 a paycheck by doing this one thing. That's what I need to focus my efforts on. I want to encourage you to think differently. It has been amazing in my marriage how more productive and more fruitful my husband and I have been, not because of the extra thing we did at work or the specific coaching, technique or tip that we got. It's because we have decided to carve out 15 minutes of intentional time for our faith first thing in the morning that we were actually able to make more money, to be able to make more calls, to be able to serve more clients. God makes a way. He makes a way when you prioritize the things that matter in your marriage and family life. He knows what your marriage and family life looks like. He gets to see every little bit of it. So when you put him first, it is amazing the grace that he gives you during the day, right? All of a sudden, traffic isn't quite as bad on the way to pick up your kids from school. All of a sudden, that issue that you had at work, somehow the knots just untangled themselves and there's an easier path, right? But as a parent, when you're busy and stressed, it's very hard to believe that starting something new like this really is going to have those benefits right away and over time. That's why I jump on the mic here at Families of Character, folks, is to share with you that this has worked. This has worked for me and hundreds of other couples. So part of our faith, right, is believing without seeing it, right? And trying to implement these things, even the small little steps that I'm encouraging. Just one of those things, try to get that going in your life tomorrow, right? First thing tomorrow morning, and just see. I would love to hear from you and how it's working. I just want to give some closing thoughts about this whole thing. I don't want you to get caught up in the hustle of life and look back and go, man, I wish I would have done that 5 years ago, right? Don't forget to prioritize what matters most: our faith, our marriage, and our families, in that order. So whether you're a mom or a dad, taking that extra 15 minutes in the morning to connect spiritually will have a massive ripple effect that will benefit your marriage, your family, and your own personal well-being. Remember, guys, you don't have to be perfect. Some days are going to be better than others, but don't give up. Just like a car needs maintenance to keep running, your spiritual life needs regular care to keep you fueled for all that life is going to throw your way. So I hope that this episode encourages you to start small and make faith a part of your daily routine. Trust me, okay? It'll make all the difference. Thank you for tuning in and for listening today. And as always, if you have any questions, want to share your own experiences, please reach out to me on social media or send me an email, hello@familiesofcharacter.com. I love hearing from you all. I've got to tell you that over the past few months, I've been hearing from couples that have gone through our Thriving Family Accelerator coaching program or have attended one of our workshops, and you all are crushing it. You're writing in saying, we're keeping up on a weekly family huddle, and man, I have never felt like a more unified team. Jordan, thank you for encouraging my husband and I to pray together, right? That 90 seconds of prayer time as a couple in the morning has totally transformed the way we feel about each other, even the way we glance at each other. It has really drawn us so much closer. You guys are telling me about how you're responsive versus reactive to your kids because you're taking better care of your spiritual life. You're taking better care of your mental health, your physical health. This is super exciting. It's so fulfilling to hear on my end how these messages that we're putting out, how the coaching content that we are, putting out there for couples and delivering in workshops at churches and parents groups are really bearing a lot of fruit. So please share with me any of the successes you're having and certainly any roadblocks that are keeping you from experiencing these transformations that you're hearing about from other couples in our community, because we can help here at Families of Character. I sign my emails with a special signature that says, I'm always in your corner. And that's true, 100% true. Reach out to me, hello@familiesofcharacter.com. I would love to help you. Until next time, please take care of yourselves and your families. And remember, when you prioritize your faith, everything else falls into place. Guys, I'll catch you on another episode of our show real soon. Please share this with your spouse and anyone in your circles to help us get the message out. Take care, and we'll connect real soon.